Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new series that I'm kicking off here. It's going to be kind of focused on playoffs. I'm going to try and get a lot of the premier teams in playoffs. I don't know how much I'll make it through, so the scheduling and stuff, and all the players being super busy. But we got a little bit of leeway here. But before I introduce my guest, I do want to ask you all as well to like and subscribe to the video. Be much appreciated. But with all that being said, we'll introduce Triumph's IGL here, Shakezullah. I'm sure you've all heard of him. How you doing today, man?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Just got off work. We're getting right into things, but I'm excited for the interview. But first off, just kind of get us into an introduction here. I'm really getting way too excited for Lance to come back. So, I wanted to ask you. I've seen you on your Wikipedia page that you've been to a couple of lands. So, what has been your best land experience? And then when going back to lands, when all this stuff is over, what's the thing you're looking forward to the most?
I think my best experience in lands was pretty much just going to MDL land and then the minor back to back
Yeah,
last year when I was on Singularity, and it was just a good experience overall, just to kind of feel what it's like to go to an event, what it's like to deal with flying to Europe and
yeah,
dealing with the change in time and all that good stuff. So it's just good experience overall. That's like the best way to describe it.
mm,
And there's just like no way. It's not much different. Like people always talk about LAN and
yeah,
online. It's like, oh, he wouldn't make that peak on LAN or whatever. It's like it doesn't feel that different. Like at the end of the day, the game is still the game. There's like a couple things to change, no doubt, but like it's just nice to get the experience, getting used to like playing on a different desk, playing at different height, like just with a different surrounding, different
right.
lighting, all that stuff. It's just the small things that are different on LAN, and so overall, it's good to play them so that you just are more comfortable over time as they go on.
Yeah, yeah, that's certainly a good point there. I've heard a lot about like desk sizes and like such minute changes that kind of throw people off. So it's a good little bit of insight. But now just kicking off, before we get into a little bit of the playoff talks, I want to talk about how the past couple of months have went for you, mostly like so far this season. At the beginning and the Mythic Cup, I know you all had not, I wouldn't call it struggles necessarily. You played a pretty um rough series versus High Coast, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, towards the end, but you had a good run, and you were working with a really early roster, but over time you were able to improve quite a bit. And so first off, I want to ask how that process went from your standpoint, probably from coach of, is it Tactus? Is that how you say his
To
name?
see this.
Tacitus, from your coach's point of view, how that process went in kind of building up this core and new roster.
I mean, I pretty much just analyze players in the scene that we were interested in playing with.
Hmm.
And I kind of know people around the scene, so I just ask around if there's players that I'm interested in playing with or that I think has potential from games that I've witnessed. So we just pretty much filled out like a list of kind of like the top two or three players in each position that we were interested in reaching out to, and the roster filled pretty quickly. I don't know. There are definitely some people that we weren't able to get, and
Hmm.
I was kind of sad that we weren't able to build kind of the full potential roster we were looking at. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you have to work with who you're going to work with and make the best of the situation. So uh, that's I've dealt with it plenty of times, plenty of roster changes, plenty of different players, and it's
Yeah.
just at the end of the day, if you give up and you are just mad about your surroundings or who you're playing with, then you're just gonna not perform as well as you should. So you just have to keep grinding at the end of the day and deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And for your role specifically, like how was like your game plan kind of filling in those rosters? Like how did you utilize them to kind of improve over time? Because like I mentioned earlier, you did kind of start out yeah, with that rough loss to High Coast, and I was a little bit worried for you all, but then I kind of had this feeling that you would stable out over time. So how does that kind of come through in a process?
I mean, I'm always an IGL that relies more on like time together as a team. I feel like
Right.
a lot of the things that I teach kind of take time to develop. I'm not really an IGL that goes through and teaches players like strats and implements them
Yeah.
into certain spots. I mostly try to teach like concepts and have them think about the game more. And a lot of that stuff takes time,
Mm.
and not every player can do it. So it's just like a lot of my structure stuff is like 2 or 3 months down the line. That's kind of where you start to see the fruits of what we've been working on. Uh, and so just early on with like that High Coast game, we didn't have like any practice, and I mean they had a new
Yeah.
roster too, but it's just we placed for about where we were expected to play in that tournament. I mean we thought
Yeah.
we could win the final, but we most certainly weren't disappointed with going second place at all. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'd have to say I had pretty similar expectations, either first or second. So certainly not too much to note there. But moving forward, I want to talk about introducing Cynic. I think that the trade was probably the best you could have gotten out of the timing and everything going on in Premiere. Picking up Cynic, he's been really good so far. I feel like in the season, I think on Recon 5 he was some crazy ADR. I think he was like 100 ADR in the season so far. So do you want to talk a little bit about introducing him into the more stable core that you were able to pick up over time?
I mean, I think that David Sinek has been like a really valuable introduction to our team. I think that he adds a lot of the like small pieces that we really need as a team. You know, he's called
Mhm.
in previous teams. He's very independent as like a player. He does a lot of the grindy work, and quite frankly, I think that he's like tier one material given enough time. So I don't see any reason why he can't be in the likes of Graham and the likes of Junior and
Yeah,
3 to 6 months. But like I said, he's like a very self-sufficient player. I can leave him on one part of the map and really trust him to make the right play or to read the game well or to call us back. And so finding players like that, especially within the NA scene, is just I'd say invaluable. And
yeah.
quite frankly, I've been very impressed with what I've seen so far from him.
Yeah, me too. He's got like not just on the scoreboard like the stats that he has alone, but certainly like the expectations that you can have from him. It's pretty high, just like given the positions. But um, moving on, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Was the roster changes during the season and throughout. But moving on into the playoff talks here. First things first, I want to try and paraphrase what Swisher said in his podcast with Maui Snake when he was talking about what playoffs could possibly round out to be. He mentioned that the four teams that can kind of compete in that semifinals position would be Bad News Bears, High Coast, Extra Salt, and then you guys in Triumph. So, talk about like the potential for trying to make playoffs, or rather that semifinals, and even move past it into getting that EPL spot.
I mean, I think for like all four of those teams, I mean, it's pretty much like an agreement. Like, I think that that's pretty much like the four teams that are going to battle it out. And if
Yeah,
anybody else came through, then I'd be very, very surprised. But I mean, at the end of the day, all four of us probably have the aspirations to win, and that's kind of the only goal really coming into the season, right? Is to make it to EPL. So quite frankly, we would be disappointed with anything less than getting first. But
yeah,
obviously, with kind of where we're at as a team and the results recently, there's no doubt that punching up against Extra Salt is probably what we're all looking at right now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's going to be tough, going into playoffs. There's no doubt about it. But our goal is to win, and we're going to do everything we can. We're going to spend the next 2 or 3 weeks prepping before playoffs, and we're definitely going to put in the work and give it our best shot.
Yeah, so that's kind of the opponent I would have to agree as well, is that they are going to be the most difficult. I mean, maybe Bad News Bears at their peak was pretty good, but it certainly feels like Extra Salt is kind of pulled away, at least from the DreamHack qualifiers. So I definitely have to agree with you there. But with that being said, what would getting that EPL spot like mean for you all in Triumph as an org? Because I know with you specifically as an IGL, you've been through the ringer with getting all your star players taken away from you. You got Grimm and Junior. So what would it mean to you to be able to move back into that EPL spot there? And especially, I believe next season you will also be competing in Europe, so how would that kind of affect your all's morale as a team and you specifically as well?
I mean, definitely be really good because at the end of the day, the big like thing right now is that practice in North America obviously isn't the best,
Yeah,
and so any tournament that you can qualify for, whether that's CPL, whether it's the DreamHack stuff that Extra Salt's winning, is like really winning the qualifier spot out of NA is the golden ticket right now because getting that practice over in Europe or getting that boot camp over in Europe right now is honestly invaluable practice
yeah,
and invaluable experience that you can bring together as a team, especially when I think Cooper and I are the only people from our team that have ever, been outside or played
right,
teams from really outside of the
yeah.
country or region. So it's like just anything that can get us to Europe, whether that's EPL, whether that's DreamHack events, is just super important. And so that's kind of our goal right now is to qualify for those so that we can get that trip and we can get that experience.
Besides, those top four teams, who would you say you are most not necessarily afraid of, but who could be kind of a sleeper pick team that can send people either to the lower brackets or catch them off guard? Definitely put a run for their money there.
I mean, I think Rebirth and RBG. I mean, the other four teams that are being playoffs outside of that are
Yeah,
RBG, Rebirth, Mythic, and Oceanus. And I don't hold Oceanus and Mythic in very high
yeah,
regard in terms of like being able to knock teams down. Like Mythic maybe a little bit in
mm,
terms of like the less experienced teams, but I think Oceanus and Rebirth should go out in 7th and 8th, and then Rebirth and RBG definitely have upset potential. But
Mm.
I believe if the brackets go the way I think they will, RBG plays Extra Salt or potentially B&B in the first round, and I
Yeah, that's
find it really
rough.
hard for them to win that matchup. So maybe take something in the lower bracket, but um, yeah, I definitely see like Rebirth and RBG around the 5th, 6th, and then us at the top 4. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that the seeding, at least, I mean, the two top teams in not your group, I don't know which group is A and B, but the other group, it's really just Extra Salt and Bad News Bears on a tier of their own. I feel like you have a little bit more competition in your all's group, so certainly going to be difficult to make any sort of like run for that side of things. So, um, yeah, moving on forward there, in let me think. I knew I should. I knew that Blast was not released yet.
I mean, we could talk about like general expectations for the qualifying stuff. I'm just gonna say to win.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So, along that lines, what do you think about the Blast qualifiers? What are your expectations if you are able to attend that one, and what you all trying to get to that European boot camp in general as a goal?
I mean, again, it's just another experience where we have the opportunity to go to Europe if we win it, and we're in a position right now where obviously we're punching up, like I said earlier, in
Mm,
terms of like where we're at as a team right now. But we've played High Coast close. We've played, we beat High Coast. We played Extra Salt close in a lot of games, and I think that them and Payne are definitely kind of the top two right now. But if we come up and we have a good day, we can definitely beat either one of those teams. So winning this qualifier definitely isn't out of reach for us, and especially again, Blast I think is especially a tier 1 event. I don't
yeah,
know how like DreamHacks and stuff would be in Europe, but Blast itself is a tier 1 event. We would get, at least 2 games against really good European competition. And I think that again, experience like that is super important no matter what happens, just for the inexperienced players on our team or just the practice that we get over overall over there. So
yeah,
again, we're just gonna do the preparation coming into the event, and we just believe that if we come up and we play a couple good days, that we can beat any of the teams in the tournament.
yeah, yeah. That's certainly the case there. But that's pretty much all I have for you. Talking about playoffs and talking a little bit about other aspects. But finally, I do want to leave off with asking how you think that the three newcomers of B Wills, Viz, and Cynic will do kind of versus any sort of like European opposition, because if you do make it to that point, that would be a huge step up for you all and for those three players specifically. I believe that Viz first season was last season in MDL then, but now Premier. So those three players specifically, how do you think they'll be able to learn and gain from that experience?
I mean, spiritual, like you said, it's just a learning experience, and a lot of times these things just take time for players and for the people to just play against it, to realize the level of competition, to start putting in the extra work that they need to adapt and fix the things that are flaws in our game as a team or them as an individual player.
Mm,
And just speaking from teaming with them, I know that they have the mindset and the willingness to put in the effort and to approach things that they might be struggling with and put in the effort to fix it. So I think Europe, if we get that opportunity, will just be another chance for them to show that they're willing to put in the work and to fix the mistakes that are in their game. And hopefully, we'd be able to come back and be at another level than we are right now.
yeah, yeah. Exciting stuff, man. That's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for joining up with me and doing this. I'm super excited for you all. Hope the best and have a good one, man.